Swamaya Yatmara Chitashtar Akshaya Pranakshari Bhirsan Veyabhyate Yaha who Ikshita the witness, Aham false ego, Rahita devoid of, Api nevertheless, Asat Sataha of material products and causes, Svatejasa by his personal potency, Apasta having dispelled, Tamaha the darkness of ignorance, Bhida the idea of being separate, Brahma and bewilderment, Svamaya by his material creative energy, Atman within himself, Rechitaha by those who are produced, the living entities, Tat Ikshaya by his glancing upon that Maya, Prana by the vital airs, Aksha the senses, Dhivi and intelligence, Sadhaneshu within the bodies of the living beings, Abhiyate his presence is surmised. Translation. He is the witness of material cause and effect, yet he is always free from the false identification within them. By his internal potency, he dispels the darkness of separation and confusion. The individual souls in this world who are manifest here, when he glances upon his material creative energy, indirectly perceive him in the activities of their life airs, senses, and intelligence. I'll read it again. He is the witness of material cause and effect, yet he is always free from false identification with them. By his internal potency, he dispels the darkness of separation and confusion. The individual souls in this world who are manifest here, when he glances upon his material creative energy, indirectly perceive him in the activities of their life airs, senses, and intelligence. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, excuse me, let me. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, Acarya establishes the all-powerful position of the Supreme Lord, whom he is about to see in Vrindavan. The false concept of separation from the Lord is described in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, 11.2-37. Thank you, Prabhu. Bhayam dvitiya bhiniveshata sva ishad pretashya viparyaya smriti. Although all existence emanates from the absolute truth Krishna, we imagine a second thing, this material world to be eternally separated from the Lord's existence. With this mentality, we try to exploit that second thing for our own sense gratification. Thus, the psychological underpinning of material life is the illusion that this world is somehow separate from God and therefore meant for our enjoyment. It is ironic that the impersonal philosophers, in their radical renunciation of this world, claim it to be utterly false and totally separate from the absolute. Unfortunately, this artificial attempt to divest this world of its divine nature, or in other words, its relation to God, does not lead people to utterly reject it, but rather to try to enjoy it. While it is true that this world is temporary and thus, in one sense, illusory, the mechanism of illusion is a spiritual potency of the Supreme Lord. Realizing this, we should immediately desist from any attempt to exploit this world. Rather, we should recognize it as God's energy. We will actually give up our material desires only when we understand that this world belongs to God and is therefore not meant for our selfish gratification. The word abhiyate here refers to the process of surmising the presence of the Lord through meditative introspection. This process is also described in the second canto of the Bhagavatam, 2.235. I just read the in translation. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is in every living being along with the individual soul. And this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. Acarya states that the Lord is free of the egoistic pride afflicting ordinary embodied souls. Yet the Lord appears to be embodied like everyone else, and therefore someone might object to the statement that he is free of egoism. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti comments on this puzzle as follows. How can we distinguish between being free of false ego and being afflicted by it? If the living entity is situated in the body, argues the objector, he will encounter the unhappiness and confusion that occur within it, just as a person living in a house, whether he be attached to it or not, cannot avoid experiencing the darkness, warmth, and cold that occur within it. This objection is answered as follows. By his internal potency, the Lord dispels the darkness of ignorance along with the separateness and bewilderment it produces. Magyanat marandasya jananjana shalakaya chakshurum militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Namo Vistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rup Kadam Dati Svav Dantikam. Vanchikalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sinhu Bhaevacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityanand Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I pray to Kishore Kishori to give me the intelligence to speak on something useful. And I apologize for my shortcomings. Anyway, the 10th canto, I like the 10th canto. As a matter of fact, I just finished up 10th, 11th, and 12th canto, and it's very, very inspiring to hear Krishna's pastimes. This part of the Bhagavatam is specifically speaking about the creation and the illusion that the individual ends up getting influenced by, and the difference between the supreme energy, superior energy, inferior energy, and Krishna's position. There's many conceptions of God. If you ask, if you just go out and ask, who is God and stuff, they will tell you, kind of looks like me, old man with a beard sitting on a throne, chastising people. This is one version. It's a Christian version that I grew up with. The philosophy or the theory behind that is that you should be fearful of God. Don't commit sins, otherwise he will chastise you. Krishna doesn't chastise. Krishna just loves. But the material energy, that's the purpose of the material energy, is to cover us with illusion, so we think that we are the enjoyers, and to keep us in the material world. And here it's nicely explained how the difference between the thing that's always amazed me is that no other religion was able to describe, to explain it to me, the difference between superior and inferior energies. The material energy is inferior energy. And what happens is someone who does not surrender their heart or surrender themselves in the service of Krishna, they end up being influenced by the material energy. And the material energy is not here to supply sense gratification for us, which everybody thinks that. Everybody thinks that, hey, this is my life, you only have one life, enjoy. I hear this so much, one life. When I worked, I used to hear this, you have one life, enjoy, and I would go, no. If that was the case, then why even bother with anything? It would be just a waste. You're just gonna end anyway, So their illusion is that this material energy is all in all, and they don't understand how this is, even though it's an inferior energy of Krishna, but it is Krishna's energy. So if it is Krishna's, what right do we have to try to enjoy it? We don't. It's not our position to try to enjoy this material world. And anyway, anybody with even a little bit of intelligence, I've lived a while, and some of it was good, bad, and ugly. My life has been a mess. But what happens is, the realization that I came to, and thank God I became a devotee and came to this realization. The realization that I came to, that no matter how much sense gratification, no matter how much I have, no matter what I do, I still have that emptiness. I had that emptiness. So I was always trying to fill that emptiness. Well, maybe more of this, or maybe more of this, or maybe, one girlfriend, two girlfriends, roll 5 joints, drink 10 beers. So we're always increasing it because we're never satisfied. And this is what the nature of the material energy is. The material energy is to sit there and illusion us to the point where we're thinking that we are the enjoyers. And when an individual starts thinking like that, that means he's going to keep taking birth in the material world over and over and over again. We hear philosophies and stuff, but the 10th canto specifically, like when Krishna explains his energy, he explains it in a very simple way. It's all my energy. Now you can call yourself Mayavadi or this or that, and think whatever you want. But the reality is, if anybody with common sense would think, I try to enjoy, I'm not enjoying it, so it can't be mine. Or if you have something and it's taken away, how was it yours? And that's the difference between material consciousness and spiritual consciousness. I gave an example one time. Me and my cousin, we were walking through a park, and this was a nice springtime, and there was a bunch of roses. And I like using this example because it's a perfect example that shows the difference between the mentality of a devotee, or the mentality of someone who has some knowledge of God, and someone who just doesn't care, thinks that the material energy is for their enjoyment. And we're walking, and I was looking at this, roses, you have a lot of roses, but there's always, whenever you look, there's always one that's special. And other things too. There's always one that's special. This thing was so beautiful. It was huge rose, just beautiful. And I was looking at it, and I was thinking, it's a beautiful rose. How nice it would be to offer it to Krishna like this. And because of that, the thing that came out of my mouth, I said, that's a beautiful rose. And he looked and he said, oh yeah. And he smelt it. And it was like a light going off, ding. And it was like I had a realization. That is the difference between someone who is Krishna conscious, or somewhat Krishna, not that I was Krishna conscious, but someone who is somewhat Krishna conscious, or a devotee, and a non-devotee. The difference between a devotee and a non-devotee is a devotee is sitting, how can I offer this to Krishna? Because it belongs to Krishna. And Krishna says this right here. Material energy is part of my energy. And it cannot function until I glance over it. So if you have the Supreme Personality of Godhead saying that it's my energy, and you really don't have a right to it, he might tolerate it, but it's still, if you love someone, you don't take their stuff, you don't steal their stuff. So what happened is I had a very nice realization, and I thought, wow, that little bit of Krishna consciousness, the difference between one individual and another. And so, and if somebody saw us walking on the street, you can't tell the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. The only difference is the state of the consciousness that the individual has. So what happens is, to stay in this material world, it's not a smart thing to do. I mean, we might not be able to I'm not very good in chanting Sanskrit, and I'm not much on anything. But the point that I'm trying to make is that we are so fortunate, especially in this age, one of the hardest ages. But at the same time, we have a process that can take us completely out of this material world, totally out of this material world. You don't have to take birth again. And I tell you, living this as long as I have, it's not fun. It's nothing. I mean, the pleasures that you get in the material world is nothing. There's an old saying, there's a song, whatever gets you through the night. I hate to contaminate your guys' minds, but there's a song, whatever gets you through the night, it's all right, it's all right. Well, that's the mentality, that's a material mentality. And in a way, because we are, so strongly influenced by the material energy, we cannot just Krishna, I'm going to surrender, that's it. I've seen this happen. Devotees come in and they become pure devotees right away. I mean, a month of chanting and they're pure devotees. Prabhu, you shouldn't do this. Prabhu, you got to do it this way. You got to get so caught up in the detail and the rituals and stuff that we forget that we're all an illusion. None of us are on a platform where we can fully surrender. So we do whatever we have to do to get us through the night, in a sense, to get us through the point. But at the same time, understand that the only way that I can actually eliminate this illusion and get out of this cycle, this samsara, repeated birth and death, the only way to get out of it is that every single opportunity that we have, read, chant, do something that's in relation to Krishna, so you can make advancement. So, 1%, little, like Prabhupada, you said little, then 100%, then you go back to Godhead. Don't worry about when. There's many examples of that we have that, there was, recently I was watching a video, and one of the devotees was mentioning, he mentioned the story about a Brahmin and a shoemaker, or he was working with shoes. There's variations of that. And what happened is they wanted to know when their salvation will come. So what happened is, Narada Muni happened to be walking by, so the Brahmin asked, Narada Ji, you always visit my Lord, ask him when my salvation will come. When will I, stop this cycle of repeated birth and death? And what happened is the shoe maker wanted to know the same thing. Cobbler, I believe the word is cobbler. So the cobbler wanted to know the same thing. Oh, yes, Narada, can you please ask the Lord when I will go back? And you would think that someone who's doing all this worship and stuff, Krishna would be very pleased with them. So Narada said, yes, I will ask. So he went and he actually asked. And yes, he said, there's a Brahmin that asked me when his salvation will come. And Narada usually goes to visit Lord Vishnu. And then Lord Vishnu said, I don't know. Maybe this lifetime, maybe 100 lifetimes. I don't know. I don't know when he will come back. And Narada was surprised, that this nice Brahmin, he's doing so much nice service. How is it that it's unknown when he's going to come? So Narada asked about the cobbler. And he said, also a cobbler wanted to know. And Lord Narayan told him, he said, you go down and you tell them. If they ask you what I was doing, he said, tell them I was threading an elephant through an eye of a needle. So Narada said, yes. Narada is a devotee, so he just accepts, unconditionally. So he went down and he told the Brahmin, did you ask my Lord? Yes. He said, don't know when you're going to go back, He said, what was he doing? He said, he was threading. He said, I don't believe this. He said, why would the Lord do that? So he didn't. So Narada realized that this individual had no faith. He was just doing rituals, the rituals of it. The rituals are good, they're fine, they will eventually get you to that point. But then when he approached the cobbler and he told him, that the Lord was threading an elephant through an eye of a needle, he went in ecstasy. Oh, my Lord, he's so great, he can do anything. He actually had faith, a genuine faith, even though he had no knowledge, he had no way of performing the rituals and stuff, but he had faith. All his service and all his love and service was within him. So, as devotees, we have a tendency to sometimes use crutches. I use the term crutches. Unless I go to the temple, I can't chant. I don't chant my rounds good. Or we always have so many excuses and so many reasons. So we kind of use association of devotees. Like I was thinking about that. We speak about this all the time, me and my wife, about going to moving to Alachua because there's a lot of devotees there and there's a community, and my daughter's there, of course. So there's motivation behind it. But the association of devotees, and I'm realizing that what happens is when I was in the temple, just because I was living in the temple, I'm not trying to find fault. This is, with all humility, I apologize if anybody gets offended. But what happened, the point that I'm trying to make is the crutches. I lost my beat, so I can't chant, or, I have to do this, or I have to do that. I don't have time. This I don't have time just keeps us longer in the material world. So what happens is you don't have to sit there and have anything external to become Krishna conscious. Everything's there for the purpose to help us progress in that Krishna consciousness. And how do you know when you're progressing? You start losing your taste for sense gratification, and you start wanting to hear more. Associate with the devotees. These desires, your desires just change. Nothing else changes. It's the desire, that, and where where you guide those desires. And that, Krishna says, that happens with intelligence, I believe, at the end of it. By his internal potency, the Lord dispels the darkness of ignorance along with the separateness, the separation and bewilderment it produces. So what happens is, I have to go to the temple because I want to make advancement. You are a temple. Your body's a temple. If Krishna is situated within your heart, then your body is a temple. If you come to the temple, we're all respectful, clean, and that, how is your consciousness? How is your heart? How is your body? That also, because it's a temple, it has to be also treated as that. You don't sit there and disrespect the body because it's not your body. You don't respect other individuals because they are also part and parcels of Krishna. There is no difference between you and I. If we ended up leaving this body right now, we all would be the same. Glowing, beautiful, spiritual sparks, spiritual entities. Just like we have an example when Krishna broke the Arjuna trees. That's, Krishna's pastime. That's coming up. So nice, But what happens is when Krishna, these two individuals glowing like the sun, like millions of suns, but that's who we are. That's who we are. We are a perfect specimen of Krishna. The only problem is we have a minute independence, and somewhere down the line, we wanted butter for our chapatis, and boom, we fell down. In other words, we desired something outside of Krishna, and we came to this material world. How and when, that's very difficult to understand. But what happens, we did come down here. And as soon as we come down, the nature of the material energy is to cover an individual over. And each time you die, you get another body. Hopefully, I pray that all of us will have association of Krishna. But if we do get another body, Maya will do the same thing. Material energy, like Krishna says, the purpose of that is to cover the individual. It's not to give him sense gratification or help him make spiritual progress. That's not what the material energy is for. But it is Krishna's energy, and if you become Krishna conscious, there will be no difference between superior, inferior, heat and cold, happiness, distress. There is no such thing. And in order to be happy, you have to reach that point where sense gratification doesn't agitate you anymore. But in order to do that, you have to get a higher taste. How do we get that higher taste? Harinam, Harinam. It's the best way we can make advancement in this age is by absorbing ourselves and chanting our rounds. Now, what's the difference where you sit? You sit on a throne, they get you golden throne, or sit on a vyasasana, or you sit on the floor, you sit in mud. It doesn't matter. What happens is when you chant, you're still out of the material world. And that's what we want to do. We want to transcend the modes of material nature so we can become transcendental to all these miseries and the bombardment of this material energy. And when Maya sees she cannot budge you, she'll leave you alone. As a matter of fact, she'll become your ally in making spiritual progress, because every time she goes poop and pops you in the head, and you feel the misery, you go, oh yes, Krishna is so kind. He's allowing me to understand this so I can strive to get out of the material world. What do? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Or read. The secret is absorption. And I just, yesterday, I read that quote that I think Prabhupada made, but the quote was, if you don't worship or respect the holy name, if you chant, you're not chanting. And if you pronounce it nicely, Hare Krishna, Krishna, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to. But your mind is going, I got to do this, I got to do that. Your mind will always torture you. When you listen to the tape of Prabhupada, like Prabhupada, when devotees were chanting and Prabhupada was chanting with the devotees, there was like 3 times within the amount of time that Prabhupada was there chanting with them, he said, sit properly, sit properly, sit properly. But what does that mean, sit properly? Well, the devotees are chanting, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. If you're that exhausted, go take rest. Then when you rest up, come. Krishna consciousness should not be torture. In the beginning, it seems like torture because you got to do this, you got to do that. You can't do this, you can't do that. I remember when I came to the temple, I went, what? What do you mean you can't do that? I mean, that's what everybody does. But eventually, those things don't mean anything. They don't affect you at all. They won't affect you. You got to get up early. You got to do this. Now I'm older. It's harder. And nobody watches, so I take an extra nap. In the beginning, you just keep pushing. I have a real nice example that I've used before. You have this big boulder. I actually saw this in a movie some years back, maybe in the 70s. But I saw this movie where these individuals were panning for gold. And this one man said, I know there's a nugget underneath this boulder. I just have to get, split, get rid of this boulder. I have to chip away at this boulder. So every day he would go out there and he'd chip away and chip away and chip away. And eventually he was just like, all I got is blisters and I'm not making any progress with this boulder. The boulder was still there. If when you became a devotee, if you saw the boulder that you had to chip through in order to get to the nectar of Krishna's mercy, it's huge, it's large. Material energy is very, very intense, very, very strong. So we have this big boulder that we were trying to get through. And we're chipping away. Eventually devotees go, God, I can't do this anymore. It's too hard. I'm going to become a Christian. I've heard this recently. A devotee desiring to be a Christian because it's easier. But if you show that individual, if we had the ability, or if I had the ability to show you, when you first became a devotee, you had a boulder that was so large, and I took a picture of it when you first started. And now, some years later, if I took a picture of you and that boulder, you would see that when you started, the boulder was like this. Now it's smaller. But we still haven't gotten to that nugget of gold. It's still a lot of work. And it may be, but it's not for us to decide when we're going to get that piece of gold, when we're going to get the mercy of Krishna, when will Krishna glance at us and give us his, and give us that ultimate mercy that we're striving for. We don't know. Could be today. Could be a million lifetimes. But it doesn't matter. The point is, if somebody told you, Pariksha Maharaj was dying. Somebody told you you have 7 days to live. I'm going to ask you, if you knew absolutely that you have 7 days to live, what would you do? Loud. Huh. Why? You have 7 days. Why not just enjoy the 7 days?
I'm gonna die anyway. Might as well just think of Krishna, and so I can go back home, back to Krishna.
Why would you do that?
because that's the place where full of happiness, no distress, no old age.
The reason you're thinking like that is because this is what Prabhupada taught us. Normally, what an individual would think is like, I got 7 days to live. Man, I'm going to party. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. That's normal. It's not normal, but an individual that has no Krishna consciousness will think of that. Let me enjoy. What did Parikshit Maharaj do? He had 7 days. He knew he was going to die, absolutely was going to die. What did he do? He didn't even drink water. He said, I'm going to die anyway. Why waste my time? Why not get absorbed? And what happened is, by that desire, arrangements were made. Arrangements were made so he can hear the Srimad Bhagavatam from Sukadeva Goswami. And I was thinking of that. I'm getting older. Somebody knocked on my door, which I had a few knocks. Krishna trying to wake me up. I think like this, if somebody told me, you have a day, 7 days, a month, what would I do? I really don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how my mind would end up. Because for right now, I can say, oh, yes, I would chant Hare Krishna and this. I'm not dying. At least I'm an illusion, thinking that I'm not dying, not anytime soon anyway. And that's what we all think. You're going to die. Yeah, everybody dies. But when somebody's got a gun to your head, that's a whole nother animal. I've had a gun to my head. I didn't think I was going to make it. At that time, I was crazy, so I didn't care. But the reality is that we don't want to die because it's not our nature. Our nature is not to die. Our nature is to be eternally, live eternally in full happiness with Krishna. And that's what we're desiring. The problem is that we just take shelter of something that's not that it's not real, because Krishna says it's real, but it's temporary. If it's temporary, why try to hold on to something you're going to lose anyway, whether it's today, tomorrow? So, we are very, very fortunate because we've gotten the opportunity, not only gotten the opportunity to make spiritual progress, but we've gotten the opportunity to actually totally get out of this material world. Why not? Why not? Think about the price that you're getting. If you have to purchase a car, you have to go through so much effort. You have to go to work, you have to make money, you have to, deal with these unpleasant salespeople. It's an effort. But the reward is you get something nice. So you get eternity, knowledge, and bliss. What are you willing to give up for that? And that's what every single devotee has to check himself that way. Krishna will give us that nugget, that golden nugget that we're striving. He will give us happiness. He will give us eternity. And he will give us full knowledge when we are ready to accept it. Hey, Krishna. Because if we are not ready to accept it, he knows it. He knows everything. He knows what you're going to think before you even decide to think that. And if he knows everything, and he knows, you cannot hide anything from him, why not surrender? When have you known? I've read, I'm not no scholar by all means, my God, but I've read some of the Bhagavatam, and I don't remember Krishna ever chastising someone if they didn't deserve it. Krishna doesn't have enemies. People decide to be his enemies. Some even volunteer. Yes, I'll take a birth as a demon as long as I can fight with Krishna and I get liberation. Why not? If that's what it's going to take to liberate me, I'll take that too. Because the effort by myself, I know me, and unless I get that mercy, I'll never make it. I don't know how to do any of this. I learn a few things, I'm like a parrot repeating things, just like a, monkey imitating, worship. But that's, ultimately, whether it's, we have to deeply dig into our heart and decide, what do we want? And if we don't, like, you guys are very young, so fortunate, because now it's easier. So put out a little bit, a little bit of effort, And I mean effort, I don't mean like, maybe, physical effort, any effort towards Krishna. But what happens is there inside, he's there just waiting for you to turn to him. So turn to him. You're in the car, turn to him. We have such a nice opportunity because it's not cut and dry. Krishna says, you can offer me anything with love and devotion. I don't care what it is. Just do it with love and devotion. That will attract me. And when you attract Krishna and Krishna glances at you, the sidelong glances, as a guy, I'm going to get a little bit weird, but, as a guy, I remember, especially now it's like I understand it better. So it's like, it doesn't, but when I was young, if a girl glanced at me like this, oh my God, I lose my mind, and vice versa, I'm sure. Some nice looking guy glances at you. Oh. You go bewildered. Well, that's what we're striving for. That's what we want. We want Krishna to do that side glance. Just glance at us. Give us. And here is nicely explained. Acarya it says establishes the all-powerful position of the Supreme Lord. So he's establishing Krishna is not impersonal. It's actually a person. You can have a loving relationship with Krishna. Mayavadis, they don't believe that. How does it go? Maya niti niti, something like that. Forget how it goes. But what happens is everything's Maya, everything's an illusion. It's not an illusion. I feel pain, not illusion to me. It hurts. My body's getting old. I feel my body. Not an illusion to me. Not an illusion. It's temporary. But what it is they, Prabhupada explained it nicely how what happens when an individual has bad experiences in relationships, it's very difficult for them to surrender because they're always thinking, I'm going to get hurt. So what do? Let's kill everything. Let's just avoid everything. If we avoid everything, then I can be happy. But the reality is that's not how it works. And plus, you can't avoid everything anyway. Material energy will work. If you're not Krishna conscious, the material energy will work. The three modes of nature will affect us. Like I said this morning, I was just stressing the mode of passion, So we're all influenced by goodness, passion, ignorance. And they fluctuate, always fighting with each other for supremacy. Sometimes the mode of ignorance, just from my own experience, sometimes the mode of ignorance, I'm just like, I don't want to do anything, and I have to push myself, to get fired up and do something Krishna conscious. Another time, I'm like, so many desires, I'm like, they're torturing me. Why do I want all this crap? Mode of passion. And then mode of goodness, once in a while, oh, Krishna. We feel so like loving and affectionate. We're melting. Oh, Krishna, it's so nice. Especially with Kishore, you can melt really easily. They're so beautiful. But that's the way, that's the process. The process not to do something grand. We can't do anything grand. Prabhupada already did it. Prabhupada already did it. Everything Prabhupada did everything and gave us everything we need to go back to Godhead. Now, kick yourself in a tush and push a little bit, so you can get the attention. Will we get there or won't we get there? Who cares? Doesn't matter. At least you'll be happy in that process. Because this process, not only that when you achieve perfection, you are happy. This process is a happy process in itself. The only problem is we try to be Krishna conscious here, and Maya is banging, and it's like, just constant battle. It's a war. Put on your gloves. If you're going to fight and you're going to get beat, you might as well go all out. And if the material energy is going to beat us like this, go all out. You want a war? Put them up. You beat on me and I'll chant Hare Krishna. That's our way of fighting back. We fight back by absorbing ourselves and taking shelter of the lotus feet of Guru and Krishna. And like I said, Srila Prabhupada gave us everything. Through the years, I've read different things. There is absolutely nothing out there that's so complete as what Prabhupada gave us. And you can call yourself Christian, Jain, Hindu, Jewish, whatever. It does not matter. You like Krishna? Great. Read the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. If you don't like Krishna, read the Bhagavad Gita. You'll be the smartest kid in school. I used to do this when I preached in colleges and stuff. That's what I would tell them. You want to be the smartest person? You want to write the most mind-blowing, paper for your teacher, for your professor? Read the Bhagavad Gita. You will be able to say things in there nobody could wouldn't even enter their consciousness, their mind. And I've had quite a few individuals, tell me that. Since I became a devotee, I can't get a bad grades. I just write what I learn and I put them together and I present it, and they get so bewildered. They go, my God, this guy's a genius. And all you did was use a couple verses out of the Bhagavad Gita that just were in relation to what you were studying. There is no better study than the study of Prabhupada's books. And not only you will become intelligent in due course, but what happens is you will end up you will take yourself right back to Godhead. Now, this is Janmashtami is coming up, and it's like this is always a nervous time for me. I always get nervous at this time. Janmashtami, Prabhupada, and I don't ask you to speak. It's been so long since I gave a lecture. I have to speak all the time in order to get that comfort zone where I guess, it doesn't affect me so strongly. But when somebody asks me, well, can you give a lecture? Maybe my ego. I think I have a big ego, and I'm still battling with that. So, and I haven't given a lecture in a long time, so I was trying to think, what are you going to say? I don't know. So it was one of those. But what happens, that in itself is also Krishna consciousness. So being tortured like that is good, Do something. A little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Like Prabhupada said, 1%. We are trying to build up a spiritual bank account. Easy way to understand. What's the best thing that you can have in your bank account? Or what's the best thing you can get on your return? 100%, right? Why not strive for that 100%? Today you put in 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%. Don't worry what's in there. At the end of your life, everything will be laid out. Here is what you did, 75%. Oh, how nice. 50%. 1%. How nice. 100%. Wonderful. even if you do 1-2%. That means that in your next life, you will never forget that. Whatever you learn, you will never forget it. Maybe in this lifetime, it might be, sometimes, we don't know what, this lifetime we have to burn off our karma. I mean, that's, we don't get the full karma. We have to burn off our karma. So that you can't stop. But what you can do is you can act in such a way, live in such a way, inspire others in such a way, So what happens is you build up that bank account, to the greatest degree in the miserable situation or the uncomfortable situation. Not so much miserable because there's certain people, we all have different karma, but to get through that karma, just let it take its course, but at the same time, just focus on trying to put that 1%, 1% more, 1% more, 1% more. Like now I retired, so I decided, it's a good time to invest a little bit more in my Krishna consciousness. So what I do is in a house, there's always something. I chant in a house and I'm thinking, that needs to be fixed, this needs to be done, that needs to be done, so I leave. I go someplace where I don't have to think about, if I don't see it, it's like they say, you don't see it out of sight, out of mind. So I use that to my advantage, out of sight, out of mind. So I go for a walk and I sit there, and the only thing I have is the beads and me. And a book and a card that I eventually go and get. But the thing is, it's just me and that. And chanting 16 rounds, I'm not, I don't know how I chant. I probably don't chant very nicely, but I always add extra. Okay, 20. Chant 20 rounds. The reason I, give a little bit extra, I said, those 16 rounds were nice. Then I know at least some of the rounds are nice. So when you have an opportunity, add a little bit more. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing, so you will tell me when it's time? It's good, it's time, okay. So if anybody has questions, I will be glad to answer, and if not...
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. You explained very nicely. As you have a lot of experience from many years, and you had a darshan of Mahabhagavad Srila Prabhupada, so you're very fortunate in that sense. My question is, on this topic, purport, it says that we should not be selfish. Everything is the property of Lord.
Everything is?
Is the property of the Lord. Everything is the property of the Lord.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. One should not. So in this purport, it says.
No, we're good.
So as material nature is very strong and we are very weak, we have our prarabdha karma and we are struggling as condition. So how we can elevate our consciousness in our Krishna consciousness in day-to-day?
I'll give you an example. I studied martial arts at one time, and I actually went to school to study it. I had a cousin, same cousin I told you about the rose. I had a cousin. He did not go into a martial arts school to actually learn it, conventionally like that. But what he did is he would watch movies, he would go to schools and he would watch. And I learned a lot, or let me rephrase that. I learned a lot more than he did. He only learned a little bit. But he mastered what he learned. So what happens is what you already have, go deeper. Absorb yourself in that. And that's very easy. You have a heart, and you have a mind, and you have intelligence. So what you do, you use those to deepen what you already have or what you already have learned. You have to understand, there is no difference. You can approach Krishna in so many ways, and this is the mercy of Krishna. He is so, he's so magnificent that he gave us every possible way that we can get close to him. But all these activities that we do, it has to be done with love and devotion. But love and devotion is something that's already within you. You already have that. I have it. Everybody has that. We already have that love for Krishna. The only problem is like, as it's explained, the material energy came, it covered that over. And because it's covered it over, we're wiping, we're trying to get it clean to the point. So what happens is when there is a, like I said, mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance, when the mode of goodness affects you and you feel that softness in the heart, take advantage of that. When you feel that, show your love to others, show that gratitude. Thank you, I don't need anything. It's me and you. And we're in love. That's how you do it. It's not the amount, but it's the quality of it. I don't know much. I've been around a long time. I'm not much of a devotee. I was fulfilling a promise that I made to someone, and in the meantime, it took up so much of my existence. In a sense, it took up so much of my time that I didn't learn how to do all these things. I don't know how to chant. I don't know how to, really do, deity worship. I mean, I really don't know a lot of. I mean, I don't know how to cook. I don't know these things. And Krishna knows that. He knows that. But there's got to be something there. Why did Kishore keep me for so long? I don't know what it is. I'm grateful. But that's what it's going to take. Sooner or later, you're going to realize that what it is this, what I have to absorb myself into it so deep that nothing else can affect that. When you can get to that stage, now you have become a devotee. Now you're going to make advancement very fast too. Because that's all Krishna wants. He just wants love, a relationship. So when we chant, Ishnika Ishnika Nama Nama, you don't invite Krishna into your heart and then avoid him. Well, Krishna's within our heart. The only problem is we just don't realize that. He's there. He sits and he watches and he just waits for us to that. I overran, right? I overrun it. Trust me, you did something that really, that Kishore they're already favoring you. And the reason for that is you wouldn't be here. How many do you see come and go? Or come temporarily or partially? Maybe they're great devotees, I don't know. I'm not saying that. I'm just generalizing, because you really don't need anything. Everything's Krishna's. Everything's Krishna's energy. And when you get to that point, then it makes it much nicer. But the point that I'm trying to make is that what happens is absorb yourself deeper. And if you can't, there was a long time I heard, if you cannot, how did it go? If you cannot cry for Krishna, there was somebody asked about, what the essence of Krishna consciousness is. And this Swami said, crying for Krishna. Not sure which Maharaj, I forget. But what happens, that's what we need. We need to cry for Krishna. And if you cannot cry for Krishna, then cry because you can't cry for Krishna. Somehow, melt that heart, go deep into your heart. When you go deep into the heart, when Krishna starts revealing himself to you, wow. And that's all you're going to want. And that's perfection of life. You're going to go, oh, Maya, Jesus, this is so much nicer. It's so much nicer. It's subtle. It's more subtle. So it's harder to perceive. And for one who's not Krishna conscious, they'll never be able to perceive that. They will never develop that oh God, he can't, it's unexplainable to be like, self-satisfied. I saw a yogi once. I saw a video of this military guy. They put him up in the mountains, they put him in the Himalayan mountains, and he had a dog with him. And the dog spotted something. The dog picked up on it before the men did, so that he turned on the camera. The next thing you know, it's like your hand comes out of the snow. And this yogi dug his way out of the snow. And he came out, and he was like a little boy in ecstasy. And he came rolling in the snow. He didn't have anything on, he just had like a loincloth, I think it's called, And he was rolling in the snow, just total ecstasy. And he went very close to the guy, and the guy had the camera. So he came very close to the guy, and he just went on his way, and he went rolling down the hill like this, and the dog's chasing him, and he's like just in ecstasy. How is that? How is it that an individual comes crawling out of the snow? That means he's been meditating in there who knows how long, crawled out of the snow, came out, and he was in ecstasy. He was in ecstasy because he was Krishna conscious. And that's what we want. We want that ecstasy all the time. Now we have it sometimes, like this, Krishna gives us these little diamonds. But if you dig deeper, once that taste comes, doesn't matter what you do. You can engage in all the sense gratification. You will never forget that. Just like children. Children should be taught Krishna consciousness right off the start. And then it doesn't matter what they do. When they're teenagers, when they become teenagers, and they're going to do all kinds of things. Forget it. You won't be able to control it. But they will never, ever forget Krishna. I see it in my own family. Even a little bit of Krishna consciousness. As soon as they see, when they see a picture of Lord Jagannath, they know. There's nothing else like it. There's Krishna. But that absorption, I can't tell you how the importance of that, how wonderful it is. It is wonderful. Just stick to it. Prabhupada said, just don't go away. Just don't leave association of devotees. Just don't go away. No matter what happens, don't go away. That taste will come. And when that taste comes, you won't want anything else. Any other questions? I'm sorry, it took a little bit long. That's it. Good.
I think we'll stop here. It's almost beyond time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sure.